I really strongly believe that the independent lumberyard is actually the most competitive advantage right now that anyone can have.
We don't have to have absolute data, but we can see the direction of something and we can steer our ship or we can steer our organization in that way. So sometimes staying small and nimble has a real big advantage.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about being able to call the guy or the girl that's name's on the door and know that your name's on the door and it counts towards your reputation.
But at the end of the day, our hardware stores, our employees, our people, they create the community in which we live and work for generations. I mean, we're talking 77 years now.
Yeah.
Really literally cool. For generations. And it's super important.
Some of these larger players have bought up a lot of independents around the country. How does the independent lumberyard survive? Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast, the show for bold builders, brand leaders, and legacy makers in the construction and building industry. I'm your host, Stefanie Couch, and I've been in this industry my entire life. Whether we're breaking down what's working in sales and marketing, new advances in AI and automation, or interviewing top industry leaders, you're going to get real-world strategies to grow your business, build your brand, and lead your team. Let's get to work. Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast. I'm Stefanie Couch, and I'm actually coming live from Vegas today. We are here for the International Builders Show, and I'm joined by my friend Erin Moore, who is actually the Vice President of Moore Lumber and Hardware in Colorado. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stefanie.
Thanks for joining me. And we just landed big week this week. I'm really excited. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of people in the business here. Like 80,000 people are supposed to be here, amazing. I think. It's out of control. So I'm ready for a big week. And I want to talk to you today a little bit about, you have an amazing story. You are a third generation owner of an operator. You're vice president, 7 locations. You guys have 150 employees. You have all the products from hardware to paint, lumber, all the things to build a home, and y'all are doing some great things. I love talking to independent owners because there are not a lot of us left out there. You know, people that grew up in the lumber business, we both grew up there. And so I'm excited to hear your story a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how this got started. It's been open a long time. Tell me the story of Moore Lumber.
Well, Stefanie, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful day in Las Vegas.
It is.
And it's exciting to be at the IBS show. So 77 years ago, my grandfather started a small, mercantile and mill shop to support a dude ranch that he had not far away from there. And the dude ranch was sold long ago, and the legacy still lives on with Moore Lumber and Hardware. We don't mill any of our own lumber anymore. Obviously, that comes mostly from the Pacific Northwest and Canada. But we are a pretty strong organization, the largest independent lumber company in Colorado. Wow,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
And you guys are still your dad's still in the business with you, right?
Yes, my dad is still in the business. I don't know that he'll ever retire.
That's awesome. I love that. And you know, I grew up in a family lumberyard too. So my granddad had a lumberyard in Atlanta growing up, and then we moved to North Georgia. My dad had one, and I loved working there when I was a little girl. Like from very young age, 5 or 6, I would beg my dad during the summers to go with him. And I love that. Any like fun childhood stories of you at the lumberyard or at the hardware store?
Yeah, so one of our original lumberyards, we actually had an apartment above the hardware store. We lived up there.
Okay.
Every day after work, I would beg my dad to drive the forklift. Dad, please. Dad, please. Dad, please. And now that I have children and they ask me those kind of questions, Dad, I wonder what he thought, but it was the greatest time of my life when I could drive a forklift and run around the lumberyard.
I same thing. I used to go steal it in the back. My dad would be like doing something up front, and I would kind of watch, and I would go out the back door. It's actually a miracle that I'm alive because I was wild as hell, and I would literally go pick up concrete pallets and stuff. Like OSHA would have hated it there. Yeah. So this message is not OSHA approved, but I really love that story. And you actually left and went and adventured out of the family business, learned, I'm sure, a lot of things that you brought back now that you're back in the family business. Tell me about your time at BlueLinx, and then you went to Universal Forest Products for a while. What did you do there, and what are some of the things that you learned leaving that family atmosphere to go work for a larger company?
I did. At one point, my dad sold a couple of his locations to Foxworth Galbraith, and we were down to just one single location, the original location in lonely old Bailey, Colorado. And let's just say there were too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to work for BlueLinx for a while. And in 2008, I could see the writing on the wall. I took a job at Universal Forest Products. So, that was a great opportunity to see what a big business looks like and how they operate. I can remember one time at BlueLinx, this was close to 2008, when a senior vice president, we were in a meeting and we're talking about some data and stuff, and everybody's like, well, it's not exactly right. It's not exactly right. And he goes, well, it doesn't matter if it's exactly right. It's directionally right.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I thought that was pretty silly. And, now that I'm back in our organization and we rise to leadership roles, we look at decisions that we make and we go, we don't have to have absolute data, but we can see the direction of something and we can steer our ship or we can steer our organization in that way. So
yeah,
those are some kind of things that you learn in big organizations. You learn about a hierarchy, a chain of command. You learn about big supply chains. You also learn that sometimes the big guys don't always have the advantage. I can remember working at BlueLinx and we would share, I was a lumber trader, and you could buy from a mill and sell to a customer, and we would manage the freight. And our freight costs were $300 or $400 higher than if we bought from a broker and sold to the customer. So we literally buy from brokers and sell to customers instead of buying from the mill ourselves because the insurance costs were so high from the big guys. So sometimes staying small and nimble has a real big advantage.
I totally agree with that. I actually think one of the biggest advantages for independent businesses like yours, and obviously my business is a small business, is that you are nimble. You can change and move with the trends. And if you see an opportunity, you can capitalize on it quickly. And a lot of times when you have a big hierarchy, it's kind of hard for that to go through all those ranks and get things done really quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Even in big companies, I think that the ones that are most successful often are very decentralized, and they do allow people on the ground to make those decisions. I know when I was in distribution, it was very similar to that. That was a real competitive advantage. Do you allow your locations to kind of, you have some operational kind of make the shots on the ground type things?
Yeah, we do almost to a fault sometimes. One of the takeaways from coming from the publicly traded companies, of course, BlueLinx and Universal Forest Products are both publicly traded lumber companies. In fact, I think Universal is the largest in the world. Mm-hmm. When you see a problem, it becomes monumental fix. Even the smallest problem, that's out of place. That guy shouldn't be here. That's a safety problem. Everything is by committee.
Yeah.
And we empower our people. I'd like to think we empower people to make those problems resolved.
Yeah.
Even sometimes to a fault where you ask the question, why did you do it that way? But you know what? They probably 80-20, they probably do it right 80% of the time. So yeah. And it's kind of an expectation that we have.
Yeah, the right people, they kind of probably know when they should ask for permission versus forgiveness, I guess, sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes we're not right on those decisions, even at the top. We're all just trying to figure it out. I think that's the thing about business is there really isn't a resolved answer on anything. It's all just kind of a hope for the best, like you said, directionally right, and take the chances. And sometimes they pay off and sometimes they don't.
Well, I think we set some goals for ourselves. And as long as we work towards those goals, we know we're going to make some mistakes along the way. But we support each other as a team, and we're all headed in the same direction.
I love it. How important is local community support in your business, and especially in the hardware side of things? You always think about the local hardware store. How important is that to you and your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's super important. That's what we were founded on, was our local business and our local hardware store. In a lot of cases, we've grown beyond our locality in terms of our sales and distribution. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, our hardware stores, our employees, our people, they create the community in which we live and work for generations. I mean, we're talking 77 years now.
Yeah. Really
literally
cool.
For generations. And it's super important. It helps us maintain our values. It helps us maintain our commitment to our community. It's super important.
One of the conversations that I have a lot with owners, and small and large businesses is about the consolidation. USLBM, BFS, some of these larger players have bought up a lot of independents around the country. Is that consolidation inevitable? Is it something that can be stopped? How does the independent lumberyard survive?
Well, certainly the current landscape says that trend is going to continue, especially with QXO out there. That's the big money guy right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that consolidation is going to continue. Whether it's good for the industry or not is yet to be seen. I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of consolidation and then cycles of devastation and so on. For us, sometimes it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, a well-respected ESOP in Colorado, Alpine Lumber, was purchased by BFS.
Mm-hmm.
And to us, we look at it and we go, that's great. We just lost another competitor that got gobbled up by the big guy. So it's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. And how that turns out in the long run remains to be seen.
What competitive advantage do you think that independent lumberyards have today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the big guy doesn't care about you, right? They might make apps for you and they might trend on social media or whatever they do. But at the end of the day, our deep product knowledge, our local relationships, our relationships with our customers and our builders, that really is what defines us.
Yeah.
Product quality and service is what will define us. And you just don't get that when you have a lot of consolidation.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about being able to call the guy or the girl that's name's on the door and know that your name's on the door and it counts towards your reputation and generations of reputation, really. I mean, I know when my dad used to, when we talked about things like that, you'd think like, well, yeah, I'm going to make it right because it's the right thing to do. And it's my name.
Yeah, and we're super centered on our values, right? Like how we conduct our business is just as important as the business we conduct. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what separates us from the big guys.
Yeah, and that service and those relationships that you build over generations. Do you have a lot of people that buy from you that are generational businesses themselves? I'm curious, like builders or contractors that have passed it down to their kids?
We do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do. I can remember being a little kid working in the lumberyard and knowing some guy's dad, and now he buys from us and his kids are getting in the business. And it comes and goes, but yeah, there's definitely an element of that for sure.
Yeah, we have some people that we used to sell, and they went to school. The kids went to school with me. Yeah. We grew up together, saw each other at the lumberyard, and now they're running the store or running the contractor's business. It's really awesome to see that.
Yeah, I think the best part about that is that our relationship extends beyond our just friendliness or knowledge of each other. Mm-hmm. Like, we're providing a service to them. They're a customer of ours. It's a business partnership, and it's really unique, actually.
Yeah, and our business is so relationship driven now. Like you said, there's a lot of technology out there. I'm speaking this week on AI. It's coming. It's here. There are things that you can do to make that better. But what I like to tell people, is you're not going to replace that part of the business, and you shouldn't try. Take the AI and use that with the stuff that no one's doing anyway. The little things that we don't have time to do that we probably should be doing. And then that gives us more time to go do the stuff that really matters, that our customers actually care about. How does customer experience and that really resonating with you as like having those relationships, how does that matter to you and your business in a day-to-day?
Well, at the end of the day, like, we're super focused on our customer experience, and that's what really matters to us. Our service, our quality, and a competitive price, right? It's kind of a three-legged stool, price, quality, and service, but anymore, you really have to be good at all three of them. Mm-hmm. We're always going to provide a competitive price, and we're going to strive to have the best service and quality, for sure.
I want to go back to your sabbatical to the big distributors and then coming back here. How did seeing those things, or maybe just maturing in your career, how did that change your leadership style now that you've been back for 12 years at Moore Lumber? How did that change that?
I think it goes back to being able to solve problems, right? When you're in a big organization, any problem you see takes a committee or a team to solve. It could be a dumpster that's out of place. Hey, the dumpster is over there. It probably should be by the gate so the guy can just pick it up tomorrow. In a big organization, it might take 2-3 weeks to solve that problem.
Yeah.
In a small organization, you empower your people to go, here's the right solution. Let's just solve the problem right here and now. So
it's one of the most frustrating and also eye-opening things that I ever saw in business when I went from my dad's lumberyard. You know, it was like I walked in and said, "Hey, Dad," and then it was done, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I went into the branch manager's office, and it was a man who was a similar age to my dad, and like basically it was like, "Hey, Dad," and it was like, "Oh, well, let me work up these 14 processes to see if maybe we want to talk about talking about this." And it was a really big eye opener for me. There's a lot of advantages. Obviously, they have sometimes a lot more capital to put into projects and things like that, and maybe a longer vision for like, hey, if this doesn't make money for 3 years, we're okay with that sometimes in a big company. But it also does take a long time, it feels like, to get anything done.
Yes.
And that's a big competitive advantage, I think, for you guys as smaller, nimbler business to be able to move on something quicker. The opportunity could be gone before people say yes in a big company.
Yeah.
How do you balance family dynamics? I know it's you and your dad, you know, but I'm sure you have other things going around. And sometimes those people that have worked there a long time, man, they become family, right? How do you balance that?
You know, that's a really great question. And it's always a bit of a challenge. But at the end of the day, you have to maintain your family relationship, and your business relationship is about business. So you have to treat everything with facts and be goal-oriented, and just make decisions with that process in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I'm married to my business partner, so most days it's good. We challenge each other, I think, in good ways, and that's the thing. You got to treat business like business for sure. One thing that I like to talk to people like you about is the next generation of talent. Tell me, what keeps you up at night about what's coming down the pipe with all these retirements, or what are you thinking about with next generation talent in your business?
Well, I just got goosebumps here thinking about that. That is the number one challenge to our business. It is not a glamorous business. I tell people that get into the business that you better be prepared to work hard.
Yeah.
But your hard work will pay off. And it's not a difficult business. You don't have to learn how to launch a rocket or anything like that. You just need to be prepared to work really hard. Product knowledge is probably the very most difficult thing. 20 years ago, the guy that came to work to us that sold fencing had fixed fences before. Yeah. That doesn't work that way anymore.
Yep.
Right? A truck driver knew what was on their truck, and now they don't always know what's on their truck. They might have delivered Pepsi last week, and now they're delivering lumber. So adapting to the generational talent is probably our biggest challenge as an industry, for sure.
What job do you think is the hardest one to fill? Is it that technical stuff where you have to know like doors, windows, I
would say the technical stuff. Yeah, for sure. Like Windows, for sure.
Yeah. We do a lot of training and stuff in our business, and we've started building some of that out. And it's like, how do you take a 22-year-old that's never sold anything? They've never, they just got out of college. They've never sold something. They also know nothing about windows, doors, whatever that product is. And think about how many things you have to teach them to learn that, plus the sales skills.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to put a 22-year-old with a 65-year-old architect, that would be an interesting
They'd get
conversation.
Eaten alive, probably.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a competitive advantage for those who do have some sort of program or some sort of training resources, but it seems like that's something that's very deficient in our business because we're all so busy doing our business. We don't have time to train. How do you solve that problem?
Well, I mean, I think you just have to solve it like you solve any other problem, and you have to sort of put aside some things and put first things first. And I mean, there's really no other way to go about it. I don't think. It's like eating an elephant, right? You got to take a bite and go after it.
Do you think technology will help with that?
I do and I don't. There's obviously almost every window platform has its own software. A lot of them obviously are based on a single platform, but it doesn't solve the nuances at all. I also am not sure that people are as cognizant of the result of the nuances as they used to be. So maybe that's not as important. But I mean, I don't think there's any other way but to just start and train. Certainly, build from within. Is for sure the best way. It's hard to just hire talent in this industry.
And if you hire away from someone else, it's so expensive.
It is, but sometimes you just like we went and worked for somebody else,
Yeah.
sometimes you bring some fresh energy to that. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is something you're going to see a lot of, is people moving around, especially as these consolidations happen. I think some of these people are not going to like what happens when that settles, when the dust settles, or there could be duplicates of roles and things like that. I just saw a few large companies letting some duplicate positions go, but I doubt they'll have a hard time finding a position because there's so much need in this industry.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting to me with tech companies and all these people laying everybody off. It's like, come work in the construction industry. We need you. How do we get those people, though, to see us and see what we're doing in this industry and see it as an appealing option? How do you do that?
Well, at the end of the day, it's about building success, right? It's making people feel good about their job, winning emotionally, winning financially, being in an environment they love to work in. And at the end of the day, if you do that and you have the right team, you're going to work towards the common goal and you're going to build success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What excites you the most about the next year or two in the business?
Well, I have to tell you, I think the business has changed more in the last 5 years than it has in the last 25 years. And I'm super excited to see where it goes. Obviously, AI is a huge conversation. Everybody's all about it. Right now, it helps me write emails and things like that. But when it gets into our business and it's able to solve problems and give us data that we had a hard time getting before or took a long time to get before, and it can answer questions really fast, I think that's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that, because the ERPs have all the information somewhere in the mystery of the ERPs.
It's really hard to get it out of there.
You do have to be a rocket scientist to get that.
Yes.
So maybe we should call Elon and ask if he can come help us figure out our ERPs. But it is interesting that, AI can just go in and have a prompt and say, hey, go figure out which customer segment was the most profitable over the last 5 years, after X, Y, and Z taken out of it.
After freight and returns and things like that.
And then in 20 seconds,
and deliveries. Yes,
builds you a beautiful report.
Yep.
And, we've actually started playing, I don't know if you've seen this yet, it's a pretty new technology, but we've started building out custom AI agents so that it'll actually do back and forth with a person. And it's because 68% of businesses miss phone calls, right? And so if you're after hours or if you're busy or they're, on another phone call, it at least will get the information so they can call, a human can call them back. It doesn't have to sell the window, but it's just taking that call. And that way it doesn't just get lost, because most people never call back if you don't get the call.
Well, that's pretty cool that you're working on the calls, but one of the strongest leaders in our organization, Mark Blickenstaff, is working on an AI agent to take paint orders via text.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think text is a great medium. I love that. Mark's actually here on the side. Mark and I need to have a conversation, it sounds like, about that. But I think text is good because it doesn't freak people out quite as much as talking to a robot that's smarter than most people are that work there. Like it's like, hey, this person knows more about paint than a paint person that's been selling paint. So it's pretty cool that texting is a little more comfortable, like ease into the AI agents. I love that.
I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old daughter, and almost unanimously when I call them, they go, "Why are you calling me?"
Yeah, just
why are you
text
calling me
me
on my phone? Just text me.
Yeah, it is true. But I actually think that's a great point, because a lot of the people that I deal with, they don't have text messaging ways in their business right now at all. But most builders do text their salespeople. And what happens is it's on that salesperson's phone in the Never Never land. And if that salesperson leaves, or if just something happens, you can't get that information. So it's not even going into their CRM. So I think a lot of this AI that's talking to each other, implementing things together, like you said, those systems that you can get data from, How does this person like to communicate? Oh, well, Joe sent 48 text messages last week. I'm not going to email him or call him. He wants a text, or vice versa if they don't want a text. So I love that. I mean, how many napkin orders have you gotten that is like, it's a text phone picture of a napkin order, you can't read it anyway, and then they text it and you're like, where did that order go? I can't remember. Did they email it? And then you go back and find it in your phone and you can figure out what happened.
Yep.
I love it. What are you thinking in the next year for you personally is the most exciting thing? Because I know you guys got a lot going on. What are you working on right now that just excites you? Maybe it's Mark's fancy AI agent. Sounds like pretty cool.
I think that has a roadmap. That's the word that all the technology guys always use, the roadmap, right?
You're a futurist yourself. You're all in the game over here.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we're focused on being a strong organization, being profitable, growing, expanding our markets. As I said, in Colorado, a competitor just got purchased by Builders FirstSource. So we see a huge opportunity there.
Yeah.
And we want to take advantage of that opportunity as much as we can. So that's exactly where we're focused right now.
That's awesome.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I can't wait to follow that story. And I think that that's great that you're seeing something as an opportunity that some people may see as a negative because you think, oh, well, more consolidation's happening. But I really strongly believe that the independent lumberyard is actually the most competitive advantage right now that anyone can have if your service, your customer experience, and hopefully your technology is following the path that it needs to follow to keep up. And I think the big dog's just you guys are going to eat. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited for you.
Well, I definitely think it's cyclical, right? Like when the boom times come and there's tract housing, they are going to boom higher.
Yeah.
And when the tract housing dips, they are going to go lower, and we're going to be a lot more steady. And that's important to us.
Well, and whether you're chasing that, you may not even want to chase that tract business. I know a lot of smaller local independent lumberyards don't even want to mess with that because the margins are so slim. It's a hard business to win in.
It's all about the business partnership.
Yeah.
It depends on who the business partner is and what they value.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Grit Blueprint.
Great.
This has been fun, and I hope you have a wonderful week in Vegas.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Grit Blueprint podcast. For more tools, training, and industry content, make sure to subscribe here and follow me on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. To find out more about how Grit Blueprint can help you grow your business, check us out at our website, gritblueprint.com.